Hi everyone, I'm Ellen March, and this is Sulky of America's So What Facebook Live series. And I'm gonna have to come clean and let you all know that I am not actually coming to you live today. I am taking a little break on a mini road trip with my family, but I still wanted to bring you our So What Facebook series because I have some fun things to talk about, as usual. So, our giveaway today, for those of you who like, comment, share, and otherwise engage with today's post, is going to be a pack of one of my favorites, the Sulky Sticky Fabri-Solvi. Now, I've given this away before. It's just one of my favorite products, and I'm going to go through a couple of different ways to use it today. Today, we're mostly going to talk about having fun with fonts. And by that, I mean with machine embroidery fonts. Now, you can apply these techniques if you like to do hand embroidery. Some of the techniques will be the same, except when we are at the machine, of course. But this is mostly for those of you who have machine embroidery capabilities and like personalizing things with monograms, names, phrases, that type of thing. So earlier, or I should say late last week on Friday, which was June 19th, Juneteenth, a holiday here in the United States for good reason, I posted a blog on how to create better lettering, if you will, with the help of stabilizers and machine embroidery software. Now, you don't have to have embroidery software in order to achieve great lettering. It just really, really helps. So if you do happen to have machine embroidery software, or if you want to try out some of the free trials that a lot of these software companies offer on their websites, using lettering is a great way to kind of test drive that software and see what it can do for you. So this is the project that I showed on the blog, and I probably need to mirror my screen here so that you can actually read it properly. Let's see. Actually, no, I don't. You can read it just fine. All right, so it says be human plus kind. And in order to create this, I used a font by one of our good friends at Designs by Juju. They have great machine embroidery designs offered on their site and tons of font collections. And what I really like about their collections is they come in a lot of different sizes. So this is the 2-inch font, and then this is the 1-inch font in lowercase letters, and it goes all the way down to, I believe, 3/4-inch font. It might even go to 1/2 inch. So you can create really small lettering that's already digitized that way for you. You don't have to worry about sizing it way down and then your stitch density being really thick and at the end of the day not being readable. So that's one thing that embroidery software is going to help you with when you're resizing any design, whether it is a font collection or a regular embroidery design like a motif or something like that. If you resize it beyond 20% in either direction, up or down, if you try to do that without machine software, a lot of the times your stitch density is going to be affected. So if you go way, way up and don't use software to compensate for that, you won't have enough thread filling in the stitching areas, and you'll have these open spots in your design. If you go down beyond 20% to go smaller, conversely, you will have a super dense design where stitches are almost happening on top of each other. Now, these factors, of course, mostly depend on your machine brand, how old your machine is, because they're constantly updating the technology that these machines have, and the things that they can do themselves without the use of additional software. So it's going to depend on a lot of factors, and there's going to be individual questions I'm sure that you will have regarding that. And I highly suggest that you reach out to your machine manufacturer with those questions, because we are really going to tell you about the thread, the qualities of the thread, the stabilizers to use, that type of thing. We are not experts in software or in the machine technology. So we really just go off of our personal experience to bring you our tips with what we're used to working on. And thankfully, with my background in sewing, I have been very fortunate to sew on a lot of different machine brands, every single one of them, in fact, I think. My very first machine was a Riccar sewing machine, and it was as old as me. And I got rid of it about 15 years ago, and I just kick myself every time I think about it because it was one of my grandmother's machines. But I digress. I've worked on very ancient machines, as we can call them, up to the latest and greatest with the best technology. So what I'm going to be using today to show you is the machine screen on the Husqvarna Viking Designer Epic 2. Now, this is the Cadillac of machine embroidery capable machines, okay? So, like I said, if you have a different brand, if you have a sort of lower end model or a entry level machine, embroidery machine, then things are going to look different for you. So I'm going to speak in generalities and hopefully give you some tips that you can use no matter what machine brand you're working with and no matter if you have software or not. So speaking about this particular project, like I said, I got the font from Designs by Juju, and the instructions for this project and all the tips about this font and the links for where to download it are in our blog post at blog.sulky.com. You'll find our machine embroidery fonts blog post, and you can get all the instructions for how to create this little wall art that you can hang on your front door, or even put on the dashboard of your car, something like that. So it even makes a good little table runner, like a tiny little table runner, or a very large mug rug, however you want to look at it. So you can apply the techniques that I used for this for a number of different projects, like I said. Let me get started here by showing you how I sort of got started. Now, with my center piece of fabric that I embroidered on, I gave you two different options for embroidering that, or for cutting it to size. You can either cut a rectangle that's larger than you need to just give you room to groove and embroider on that, and make sure you have perfect placement so that your lettering is not skewed on the rectangle that you've cut. Or you can cut a much larger piece of fabric so that you can hoop the entire thing, embroider it, and then cut your rectangle to size. That is actually what I do 9 times out of 10 if I have enough fabric to do so. It just gives you the freedom to play around with your design placement and make sure that everything is oriented the way that you want it to be when you cut out your final rectangle. Especially something that is very in line like this. I didn't curve the letters or have them going different directions, that type of thing. So it's very straight. So I want that center to be really straight when I cut it out. So what I did, because I used a quilting cotton that was relatively lightweight, okay? So I wanted to stabilize the heck out of it to make sure I had no puckering, to make sure that when I hooped it, the little fabric fibers didn't separate along the hoop ring, okay? That is what causes a lot of puckering. You can have a lot of stabilizer on there, and the minute you hoop it a little bit too tightly, the fibers along the hoop ring separate, and then when you go to release it, boom, it wants to shrink back to its former self, and that's how you get puckers. So Sulky Stabilizer to the rescue. And you may have never tried this particular technique. It is not something that I have seen on a lot of Sulky education materials, but it is one that has proven to work for me almost every single time I've done it, if not every single time. So what I like to do first to prep my lightweight cotton fabric for embroidery is apply the Sulky Sticky Fabrisolve, which is our giveaway today. So like I said at the top of the video, like, comment, otherwise share today's post, and you might just be the lucky random winner of a pack of Sticky Fabrisolve, and you will love this product. Now, it comes in these printable sheets, and that's what the giveaway is today, but you can also get Sticky Fabrisolve in larger quantities, okay? You can get it on a roll, you can get it on a bolt. So you don't have to be limited to an 8.5 by 11 sheet. Let's just make that known. Okay, for the purposes of this, the 8.5 by 11 sheet worked perfectly to stabilize right behind where I had the lettering, so that's what I used. So I applied this to the wrong side of my fabric. You just peel it away from the paper backing and just stick it on there like a sticker. So now I've got the fabric totally stuck to a piece of stabilizer. It's not going to stretch when I've hooped it. But some additional stabilizer is also necessary. And that is because with this 2-inch font, I've got a lot of dense stitching, okay? This is not a line art design. You can see these are satin stitches, okay? And it's actually 2 rows of satin stitches with a stitch in between them. Okay, so there's a lot of thread going on. So I want to make sure that my fabric has enough stability to support all of those stitches and all of those needle penetrations. So what I did was, once I got my fabric applied to the Sticky Fabrisolve, I hooped that, I put my hoop on the machine, and then I floated a rectangle of Sulky Tear Easy under the hoop before I began the embroidery. Now, you can also hoop it with the Tear Easy as well. You don't have to float it under there. My reasoning for doing that is I actually don't have much reasoning for doing that other than the less bulk you have in the hoop, the better result you're going to have, because the tighter your fabric is in that hoop without puckering and without over tightening, the better. So I hope that makes sense. So that is why I chose to float the Tear Easy underneath. It would work either way. The Tear Easy is a lightweight tearaway stabilizer, so it's not going to add a lot of bulk if you do decide to hoop all 3 things together. So then I embroidered the design. Once the embroidery was complete, I tore away the Tear Easy from beyond the design and then rinse away the Sticky Fabrisolve. It's totally water soluble, and then all the stabilizer is gone from your project. It is a wonderful thing, and no puckering. Now, the reason it looks kind of lofty is because I have a layer of batting in here and I quilted the edges. So it does look a little puffy, but those are not wrinkles or puckers. So it just was a beautiful result for this lettering. To come up with the colors for my design, I looked to the Sulky Flesh Tone collection. The Flesh Tone collection comes in a slimline container because you're going to get a ton, way more than this, of thread spools in all different flesh tones. So you can create a lot of different personalized machine embroidery designs with people of all looks and genders and races and everything by switching back and forth between this palette. So I thought it would be a great thing to assign a different color to each letter for my little sign. And it was just super convenient to look to the flesh tone collection, because then I didn't have to pick and choose and say, oh, does this look like the skin tone I'm going for? That type of thing. That can get a little bit tricky when you're working with designs with people on them, and you really want it to look like a picture that you are that you've digitized into cross stitch or something like that. So you really kind of want to get that right, and it's a handy thing to be able to look to that flesh tone collection. All right, so for the patchwork around my center phrase, which obviously you can write whatever you want. You can put welcome on here. You could put your last name on here. Whatever you want to say, you can say. So for my border, I had some leftover fabric scraps that were just perfect from when I did the November birthstone sew-along. Now, if you are unfamiliar with MJ Kinman's birthstone series of quilt blocks, please visit our blog, because I did a sew-along for almost every block of the birthstone series. So there are 12 blocks in all, representing the 12 birthstones, and they're absolutely beautiful. You are creating gemstones out of fabric and thread. It's an amazing process, and I think you'll really, really have fun with it. These are all available at sulky.com if you want to try your hand at one of these patterns. Also available are the fabric and thread kits. And so all of these fabrics were featured in that citrine block. And so they've been sitting just waiting for the perfect thing. And as I was going through my stash, I thought, wow, you know what? These really go with those flesh tones really, really well. So I went ahead and chopped them up a little bit and made little 2¼ inch squares and fit them around my center phrase. And the cherry on the sundae of this project is another one of Sulky's great inventions, the 30-weight blendables thread. If you have not tried quilting with the blendables, you really ought to, because you will absolutely love the randomly dyed thread. It's dyed every 3 to 5 inches or so randomly. So you will not get the same colors repeating when you do something like straight line quilting. Now, it's really difficult to see. I use this parchment color. You can kind of see all those different thread colors on the spool, and it might be easier to see along the back side how they just change from one color to the next. And it just, I don't know, it just added a little something extra, elevated this project that much more. So again, full instructions for this on the blog, so you can make something like this. You can create your own design using your own phrase, your last name, that type of thing. So another thing I just wanted to mention, when you are having fun with fonts, it gets a little bit tricky when you don't have software and you're importing or using built-in lettering to create your own phrase. Because when you go in to keep adding letters, they're either going to dump them right on the middle of the machine screen, or they're going to be placed somewhat equidistantly from each other. And that can be okay depending on what type of font you're using. If you have a little bit more of a funkier font, or a font that has swirls, or like this E, how the top part of the E is a little bit bigger than the bottom, it might look like your letters are not spaced properly. It might look like some of your letters are spaced closer than others. It just might not look pleasing to the eye, even if it's completely symmetrical, even if they are totally equidistant from their center points. So I encourage you to really just go off of your eyeball. Resize them, reposition them until they look right to you. You don't have to rely on measuring them out to a T, making sure that, each one is, starting and ending an eighth of an inch away from each other, that type of thing. Just do it so it's pleasing to the eye, and it will be pleasing to everyone else's eye, and it will look correct, even if it doesn't look correct on the screen, or if your numbers are not matching up properly. So I wanted to leave it like this because I space these equidistantly according to the boxes that are around them, denoting their size, okay? But you can see that the H looks a little bit farther away from the rest of the word. So I'm actually going to cheat it a little bit closer to the E, even though that's not what my machine screen is telling me to do. Okay, I hope that makes sense. I'm actually going to cheat my E a little bit as well. And again, just work off of what looks pleasing to your eye. So that to me looks a lot more centered. The letters look a lot, just spaced a lot better than they did previously. And, I'm just going to sew it out like that. So what I'm going to make with this is a little t-shirt. And I wanted to show you some more uses for the sticky Fabrisolvi. Okay, now I have this little girl's tank top, which is going to have our little hello design, and I've already applied a layer of that sticky Fabrisolvi to the wrong side of the shirt. And what I'm actually going to do is sandwich my t-shirt knit between two layers of the sticky Fabrisolvi. And that is going to absolutely ensure that that stretchy knit is not going to stretch when it's in the hoop. So I'm going to peel away another piece, and you use it just like a sticker. You can also use this like a template, okay? You can take this sheet and you can print off your hello design on your sheet and then place it on your shirt, and then you have an embroidery template to know if your design is completely centered or not. I love it. You can just run it right through your printer. What a great, great idea. So now I'm going to position this second sheet on the right side of my shirt, just like a sticker, just like I said. And you just place it on there. Now my knit is sandwiched between, and it's not going anywhere. Now I would just hoop the fabric and embroider. And then I just rinse it under running water to remove all of that stabilizer, and there is no trace of stabilizer left behind. This is an excellent technique if you like to embroider on sheer things. If you've ever tried embroidering on one of those pashmina scarves, this is a great way to add thread count to your delicate fabrics and then wash it completely away. So it will support the dense stitches of a denser embroidery design, like a completely filled design you could do on a very lightweight silk fabric. If you sandwich it between, I should say, silk-like fabric. You have to make sure that your fabric can withstand being rinsed and withstand water. So now the front of my shirt is completely stabilized. I cannot stretch it if I wanted to, and it is totally stuck in between those layers. So I can go ahead and move the back of my shirt away from the hoop, almost putting my shirt inside out, and hoop it. Now, I don't have an overhead camera to show you, but I will show you what it looks like after I have it in the hoop. This is where printing your design template really comes in handy, because no matter what happens and how you have to manipulate this shirt to get it in the hoop, you can move your needle position so that you know it's going to start sewing at the right spot, in the right place. All right. It's a little tricky to hoop a t-shirt, but once you have that front stabilized, you can stretch the back of it, all kinds of things to get that fabric away from the hoop. And you may have caught my Facebook Live a couple of months ago, it must be now, where I showed how to hoop a onesie. And I talked about the tunnel of fun, okay? This is our tunnel of fun, okay? You have to move the remainder of your t-shirt away from the area that you're going to embroider, and you're essentially embroidering through this tunnel. So you have to stick with your machine. You have to be sure that the remainder of your knit fabric is not going to get caught with the needle as the hoop moves around while it's embroidering. So just, be at the ready so you could stop your machine if something is moving or about to get caught. And that way you'll have a perfect design. So now that my little top is ready for the hello embroidery, I will get started on my stitch out, and I will leave you to your devices to go and be creative with the rest of your day. I hope that I've inspired you with some projects to do using fonts. I'm sure you have some built-in fonts on your machine. Oh, I also wanted to mention, if you are stitching a large font like this, a 2-inch font or larger, maybe even a 1-inch font or larger, it's perfectly fine to use the 40 weight polydeco or rayon thread. However, if you are stitching a very small font, let's say for a quilt label or something like that, or a sewing label, handmade by Ellen, and your lettering is going really small, I highly suggest you switch to the Sulky Poly Light thread. It's a 60 weight thread. It's going to create a much more readable, much prettier end result for a very, very small font. And use just a regular bobbin thread with that, or you can also use it in the bobbin. It's a 60 weight, so it's going to work great in the bobbin. So that is my tip for really, really small lettering, and I hope to bring you some more education on that in the future, because I know getting lettering designs right is, it takes a lot of practice, and we can all use all the help we can get. So definitely drop me a comment if you have your own tips and tricks for working with lettering and what threads that you like to use for those types of designs. And once I finish up this t-shirt project, I will be sure to post it on the blog so you all can see the end result. And I hope you give this a try. It's just, a great scrap buster project, and something, nice to change it up as far as your wall decor goes. So make your own statement and have fun working with fonts on your machine screen or in software. And have a great day, everyone. I will see you next time.